Memories of the way we
We
were.
were. You're gonna make me cry, buddy.
It's the last episode.
Uh,
Last episode of Sunday Night Fiction Club. Thank you, live viewers who've tuned in. And we've already got some comments, and we haven't started yet, so that's awesome. Melissa,
Yay.
hello. How are you?
Hello, buddy. How are you?
I am good, thank you. I am good, thank you.
And Miss Lisa is there somewhere?
Who's that? Yeah.
Who's that?
Oh, my wonderful, wonderful, awesome, fantastic fiance. Yes, yes,
Yay.
she is here. We had a wonderful weekend together.
Cool.
She is resting while I do this.
Yay.
Yes, because I'm in Delaware, and she lives in Virginia right now until next year when she moves up here, and she goes back to Virginia at like 3 in the morning. So, but it's kind of awesome because she beats traffic that way and everything. So she's sleeping
and
now.
she gets there for work and
Yeah, and she'll watch this later. Or
yay.
so she says.
Yay.
So this is the final episode, as I posted online, of Sunday Night Fiction Club. And because of that, our topic is our favorite finales from TV shows.
Yes.
Whether they be series finales or season finales. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But we are also going to say, I want to say thank you to everybody who's been watching the show every week. You're awesome.
Yeah.
You're awesome. We got a lot of regular viewers. Everybody. Yeah. And also thank you for having the best co-host in the world. Melissa's been fantastic.
I'm the one who has the best co-host.
Oh, well, thank you. and we'll say more goodbyes later. But we always talk about what we're reading. That's how we always start out the show. So what have you been reading?
I just finished listening to James Altucher's book, Choose Yourself, which is a great book. Check it out if you haven't. I love his books because it's not, and I think I've mentioned this before because I've read other stuff of his, that it's not the same old self-help kind of, I don't want to say crap, because they're not necessarily crap, because you never know what's going to be helpful to you. I glean a lot of little tidbits, and I'm always looking for ways to, be more efficient with my time and, dig down and figure out what I need to do personally to take care of myself so I can achieve the things I want to achieve, or just, enjoy my life and, stop dwelling on crap. And Choose Yourself is definitely about, letting go of whatever preconceived notions you have of what it takes to be successful and letting yourself be more and more who you are, because that's when you really start to make a difference, when you're your authentic self, whatever it is, whether it's just, better relationships with your family or, like we were just talking about, writing books and trying to reach people with our stories.
Awesome. It sounds really good. And I've been reading a book. It's called Go Procrastination. It's called Don't Do Today, which you can put off until tomorrow. Because I was being entirely too efficient. So
I love it.
No, I've actually just started rereading. I mentioned it a few weeks ago because I started rereading it then, but I didn't get too far. A Walk Among the Tombstones by Lawrence Block, because that's now a major motion picture starring Liam Neeson, just came out on Friday.
Nice.
And the book came out in '92, and I read it back then, but I really don't remember it that well. I find that's the case with a lot of mysteries. I can go back, I'm sure it's the same for you and anybody. You can go back to a book like, 10, 20 years later, and you really don't remember it that well.
Yeah.
It's kind of new to you. So I'm rereading that and loving it. And I had also read recently, I think I mentioned it on the last show, I read Rebel Yell by Garrett Robinson. Really liked that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I had recently finished the Paul Kingston, the 2 books that he has in his series right now. Paul Kingston is the series. It's written by Stephen L. Moss. I just recently had him on Buddy's writing show. So I've been doing a lot of reading lately.
Nice.
Yeah.
I really dipped back into my classic lit background, because that was my degree in college, and I picked up Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, which is like a shorter piece. But have you ever read any Virginia Woolf?
No. Who's afraid of her?
It's she's very much stream of consciousness type writing, and I enjoy that if I'm like in the right frame of mind for it. So I've been reading that one, and I picked up. I'm listening to you ever hear of Great Courses?
No, I haven't.
Great Courses. Look it up online.
Great Corsets?
No, that would be a good book. Great Courses. And it's basically college level courses, and you can get them as audio, and some of them are video, and they're all downloadable, so you can get them directly, or you can get the discs to watch or listen to. And I, as always, am trying to improve my own writing techniques and skills, and I started this one. It's called Building Great Sentences. But through that course, I got like several different recommendations on books to read. So I just picked up Richard Landheim's book, Style, an Anti-Textbook, which I'm excited to start working on. And then I also, everybody has heard of Strunk White's The Elements of Style.
Of Style, yes.
There is a book, and I believe the author is Bill Mayer, and it's called The Elephants of Style.
Really?
And
okay.
yeah, he's kind of being funny, but he's got a lot of good things to say. So I started reading that too. And those books are ones that I read like a chapter here or there. I rarely sit down and read right through them. So. Right.
Those sound great though. Awesome. I want to touch on the comment. We do have some comments here. There was one actually from Barbara Streisand who said, "I saw Buddy singing my song the way we were. If he ever does it again, I'm going to sue."
Oh, Barbara.
Don't
be jealous.
Someone's jealous of my great vocals. Seriously, we do have some comments here. I'll start out with our buddy Darren Waremouth. He's been on the show before. He told me he was going to be watching. He says he's going to comment on the worst finale ending. And he says the worst finale ending is The Sopranos. Why not tell us it straight? It went all arty after being brutally straight through all the seasons. Best finale, Breaking Bad. It brought closure for all the characters, and I guess this is a spoiler here, and Walter had to die. I have not watched it yet. I was just going to start watching it this week, but Darren Waremouth just ruined the ending for me.
Well, I think this show could be full of spoilers, so warning to...
You know what? If you own a computer or you get anywhere near the internet or anything, I knew that ending the next day.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff was all over the place. But I do... I've been saying it forever, but my brother Ed, he loves Breaking Bad, and he actually maybe his birthday was a couple weeks ago. He said one of my presents to him would be the fact that I finally start watching Breaking Bad. So I'm going to start doing that this week.
Oh, you've never seen it at all?
I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Dude, you have to watch it.
Well, not too long ago, I put on the first episode, and I watched just like the opening part of it. And he's there, like I guess in the middle of the desert in his underwear, shooting at like a camper or something coming at him. I'm like, oh my god, this looks intense. This looks great. So I want to start watching that. As far as The Sopranos go, now that's a show I've never seen either. I know we talked about that before.
Oh, man.
You were a Sopranos fan?
Oh, yeah. I was a Sopranos fan. I have to agree with Darren on the worst finale ever. But we were talking about this the other night with some friends on the back deck over drinks. I said, hey, we're doing this show. Tell me what your favorite finales and the ones you hated were. And these two we talked about for a while. So Sopranos in particular.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world. I know about it. I've never seen it, but I know.
Yeah. And it's, I was annoyed by that ending too. But having discussed this with some friends over margaritas, and I don't know, maybe the margaritas were influencing me, but we talked through it. It's like, in a weird kind of way, it makes sense because how do you expect a mobster's life to end, or how do you expect a show like that to end? Because it goes on and on and on. It's just who's in charge and who's dying, the new flavor of the week type of thing. So, and I know you haven't seen it, but the ending is he goes to this restaurant and he's meeting his daughter and she's coming across the street. It's like every little thing, made you think, oh, she's going to get shot, or, they're going to kill him because some waiter comes up, or there's poison in the food. It was like every little thing. That's how a mobster's life is. When's the end going to come? You just never know. So, but I felt it was a bit of a cheat to just kind of black out and say, there you go. There it all was. It's like, but, it made sense too.
Right. I saw, like, just in the past few weeks, I guess one of the creators of the show came out and said, oh, no, he didn't die in it. But, I mean, why even bring that up years later? I mean...
Well, what's the point when you've gone to black and basically made it a write-your-own-ending kind of thing?
Right.
In my opinion. Now, Breaking Bad had a fantastic ending, in my opinion. That's
what I've heard. As a matter of fact, my brother Ed, when I asked the question on Facebook, he said Breaking Bad definitely. He thought it was a fantastic ending.
Well, it comes full circle because the gist of it is that he's diagnosed with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And you know the
Don't tell
moment
us
when
too
he's,
much.
I won't, but you know the moment, watch for the scene where he's sitting in the doctor's office and he's basically like, you can just see this resolve, that's it, fuck it, I'm going to do what I have to do to take care of my family. But as the progression of his character, when the end comes and he admits to his wife, like he goes to see her, she's living in an apartment somewhere, and he says, "Do you want me to tell you, buddy?"
No, I'd rather you don't. No, but
Oh,
I'm sure it's great. You
it
know how I
is.
thought it should have ended? I thought, are
Please
we
do.
there? Okay.
Yeah.
I think it should have ended with his character like being in bed, right? And maybe he does die, but then he opens his eyes and he's the dad from Malcolm in the Middle, and the whole thing was a dream of that character.
Okay.
I think that would have been awesome. That would have been
Okay.
awesome.
We'll watch it.
We've got a nice comment here from Mr. Darren Waremouth again, and he says, "Thanks to you two, great entertainment. Always great to listen to fellow fans of books and films. I'll miss it." Thank you, Darren.
Aw,
That's
thank
very,
you.
very nice. And why don't I keep going with the comments here?
Sure.
Because we got some nice viewers, wonderful viewers.
We
And this
do.
is from the lovely and talented Michelle Reed, who's been on the show a couple times. Hello from the Reeds. Everyone's talking about worst finales, so I'm throwing in Gilmore Girls, and John says Alf. Okay, I was not a viewer of either one of those shows. I know Michelle's talked about the Gilmore Girls before, not being happy with that.
I haven't watched Gilmore Girls, so I can't speak to that, and I don't remember how Alf ended.
I
I'm
don't
sad
know.
to say.
Did he go back to the planet? Did he go back to Melmac or something like that?
I don't know. Or maybe he like turned into a stuffed animal and then he shows up in The Big Bang Theory with. Never mind.
Maybe. It's funny, I just saw a license plate that said Alf just yesterday
Where?
in my neighborhood. It was
Really?
a Delaware license plate that said Alf. So maybe it's Michelle or John Reed. I don't know. Maybe they
It's
seem
a
to be
big
Alf
fan.
fans. Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah. Also, we had David Anson checks in and says howdy to you, Mr. David Anson. Thank you.
Hello, David.
Great viewer of the show. Mr. Some guy named Granville. Does that sound familiar to you at all?
Oh, vaguely. No,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
the wonderful Xavier Granville.
The wonderful Xavier Granville, who's been on the show many times. He was like almost a third host for us.
Yeah.
He said he loved the finales for Seinfeld and 30 Rock. They're the two off the top of my head that I can definitely give the thumbs up to. Ooh, I'm going to disagree with one of them.
Which one?
Well, I didn't see the one for 30 Rock, so it's not that one. But
So you didn't like
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld's ending?
I thought it could have been better. I was always disappointed in it.
Tell me why.
I don't know. I mean, it was Lisa and I were just talking about it, and on one hand, I liked that they brought in even small, tiny characters you had seen in previous episodes, because the whole deal is they went on trial because they were such horrible, miserable people. I think they'd been taunting somebody in some small town or something like that, and that was kind of cool to see the Soup Nazi and some of the other characters you had seen from years past. But I don't know, it just seems it was so far fetched. And then with them ending up in jail because they were miserable people, mean people. I don't know. I know a lot of people loved it. For me, I was a little disappointed in it. I guess I was just hoping for the best finale ever of anything, and I was left a little cold there.
Well, remember, it was a show about nothing.
True.
And these characters never grew. They never changed. They just always kept being them.
Yeah, and they even said, I remember when they started the show, Seinfeld, I guess, and Larry David said there will never be any hugging on the show. They just didn't want it to be like a lot of sitcoms. Well, I loved the show. I watched it every Thursday, 9 p.m.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Yeah, NBC.
Well, I have a little story behind the finale of Seinfeld, and that was I was hiking the Appalachian Trail in 1998 when Seinfeld ended, and got to this town, Damascus, where they have every year the Appalachian Trail Days Festival. So the town was packed, and there's this pizza joint that everybody goes to, and anybody who's hiked the trail knows what I'm talking about. And it was packed because it was one of the few places in town with a TV that you could go to watch the finale of Seinfeld. And we were literally gathered around the little bar area, just packed in, drinking our beer, had our pitchers of beer, and eating our pizza and watching the last, the finale of Seinfeld.
Oh, cool.
And the interesting thing was to watch it with all these people and just everybody's comments, because it was just, as you can imagine, it was the peanut gallery, just everybody shouting out like, oh my god, and blah blah blah, and some
Right.
people absolutely loving it and some people absolutely hating it.
Hmm.
And I personally, I enjoyed the ending
Hmm.
because I felt like the way they were, how heartless they were about so
Hmm.
many things. And, ultimately in the end, the finale was they watched some guy get mugged and did nothing about it. And that's what the whole trial was about.
Right.
What they ended up in jail for, it was like, yeah, they finally, I don't know if they go too far or it just happens to be one of the moments where they get caught being bad. Or even it wasn't them like consciously trying to be bad, but what was it? One of their arguments is that they were New Yorkers and you don't step in
Yeah.
on stuff like that.
Yeah, I haven't watched it since then, and I probably won't ever rewatch it. Oh, Michelle clarified for us on Alf. His
Okay.
ship is coming to pick him up, and the Feds show up, chase off his spaceship, and capture him. The end. Apparently, that's how Alf ended.
Oh my God, what a weird ending. I
I
don't
know.
remember that.
Well, boy, there's so many here. I'll just keep going here if that's all
Okay.
right. And if I can find this stuff, Patrick's right about this one here. Patrick Stamp, good friend Patrick Stamp, he says, "Okay, I'm sure Buddy will talk MASH. No need for me to weigh in there." So,
Let's talk MASH.
okay, all right, yeah, we'll go back to the rest of this comment in a second. All right, let's talk MASH because I was definitely going to talk MASH. Have you seen it?
Oh, absolutely. I was a big hardcore MASH fan.
February
And
28th, 1983. Goodbye, farewell, amen. 8:30 p.m. CBS. It was a Monday night.
do you look these up?
No, I remember that one. I
Oh my
remember that one.
God. Do you have like an
It,
eidetic memory or something?
something like that. Something like that. So, Melinda, yeah, that was a great, great episode. Yeah, see what I did there? I don't know. Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Getting in all the bad jokes of the last show. Oh,
And
I was a
Melissa
big.
laughs at all of them, except the ones that go phew over her head. And she's like, what? Huh?
I loved MASH. I was into it since I was a little kid.
Me too.
Matter of fact, when I was in the 8th grade, that's when MASH went heavy into syndication, where they were showing it
Hmm.
3 times a night.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
on a football team in school. I quit the football team because I got addicted to MASH, and I did not. We had practices while MASH was on.
I thought you quit the football team because you were addicted to a different show.
Nah, it was that, and then it's also the year I started smoking weed.
Oh,
No,
gosh.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't advocate that at all. Yeah. Um, oh, that last episode though, it was so great. It was 2.5 hours long. Like I said, it's
Hmm.
titled "Goodbye, Farewell, Amen." And of course, it was all about the war was finally ending and they got to go
Hmm.
home. But there was so much good stuff. I mean, there was a lot of drama in there because like Hawkeye pretty much lost his mind at the beginning
Yes.
of it, and Charles, it was he went through hard times too. Remember, he was mentoring. There were the Korean musicians that came in. They needed to be
Yes.
operated on, and
Yep.
his love was music, and he had them. He was like orchestrating them or conducting rather, and that turned out kind of badly, and all kinds of good stuff. BJ didn't want to. He refused to say goodbye at
Yes.
first, and so I remember it. I still watch it. I own the entire series of MASH, and that one will make you crack up 1 second and cry the next second.
Right.
It hops back and forth. It was one of the best episodes. It's still, I believe, the highest rated TV show on network television. Yeah, ever. That episode was. It hasn't been topped yet.
Really? I did not know
For a
that.
television show, I believe some sporting events may have beaten it, like Super Bowls, but for a regular series, and I might even be wrong about that. It might hold the all overall title, but definitely for a series, it was the highest rated episode of anything.
Well, and that episode, I mean, that finale, like you said, there were, the layers of things going on with the different characters, but of course it revolved around Hawkeye.
Yeah.
He had always been the one to kind of pull everybody together. I mean, he always, kind of with his humor and his kindness and his ways, and he really did care about people, and he could be goofy, and he was the one who kind of pulled people out of their funks, and for him, to go down the way he did.
Right.
But I mean, it was pretty intense. If you
Oh, it was very
watched the
intense.
show, they were in
Yeah.
a bus, and I guess there was a North Korean regiment going through, doing a
Mm-hmm.
patrol, and they were trying to hide. And
Right.
well, you don't know until the end what actually happened. But there's this chicken on the bus. The way he keeps telling the story, that
Right.
wouldn't be quiet, and the woman
Mm-hmm.
ends up killing the chicken. Well, we know what it ends up in the end.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
extremely sad, and I can
Yeah.
see. I would think I would kind of lose myself a little bit since he was the one who was like, "Make it shut up, make it be quiet."
Mm-hmm. It was yeah, it was very, very it was intense in a lot of parts, and
Mhm.
I remember that. I remember the whole thing so well, and of course all the individual goodbyes that happened in there too. I remember very
Mhm.
well. Like Hawkeye and BJ saluting Colonel Potter. They never did
Mhm.
salutes, but they said that was heartfelt. And remember Margaret talking to Colonel Potter, and when Harry Morgan passed away a couple of years ago. That kept popping in my mind, like when she was like, "Oh, you dear sweet man,"
Mhm.
it was just great. Starting to tear up to think about it.
I
It was just
know.
it was such a great episode. So that's one of my favorites. And Patrick also said in here, since he knew we were talking about MASH, Lost. I loved it. A lot of people didn't. BSG took me a second. Battlestar Galactica, worst
Oh,
ending
okay.
ever. And I wish I could unwatch the entire series because of it. Because of it. Oh my
Ooh,
gosh,
that's strong feelings.
that's very strong feelings. Now that's another show I didn't watch, but and I knew I was never going to watch it. So I kept hearing about the ending, so I read about it, and I could see how that sort of thing probably would have made me mad too. I don't think
Mhm.
that. Were you a Lost fan, Melissa?
I watched it intermittently.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big fan of it, so I honestly did not watch the finale of it. I hadn't gotten into it enough to really get attached to it. And I'm not saying it was a bad show. It may have been something else was capturing my attention at the time, but I know my
Yeah.
folks were really into Lost.
Yeah, I was pretty heavy into it, and my dad was into it too. It wasn't like normally one of his kind of shows, and we watched it together. And he was just, he was at the end of it. He's like, I don't know what the hell just happened there. It did kind of like the ending was kind of unusual, and I know a lot of people were very unhappy that certain things weren't resolved, but they brought up so much over the whole 6 seasons of the show. I didn't think everything could be resolved. I liked it a lot. I don't want to say too much about it because if people are interested in Lost, that's a show that you can't just skip an episode here and there. I think if you
Hmm.
start watching it, you'll be into it. And I don't want to say too much, but for me as a Lost fan, someone who watched it religiously every week for 6 seasons, I was happy with it. I thought it was a
Cool.
very great ending. Very great ending. I know we've got all these comments here, but if there's any shows in particular you want to bring up, I can kind of hop back and forth here.
I'm going to bring up a show that ended this year, and I was a big fan of the show, True Blood.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, I didn't know it ended. Wow.
oh,
Okay.
yeah, this was the final season. And I have to say that you haven't watched True Blood,
No,
right?
I'm not going to.
Okay.
So, let me say anything.
So if you're watching this and somehow haven't caught the finale of True Blood, big spoiler alert. But what annoyed me the most out of the ending was that in some ways, everything that Sookie Stackhouse went through didn't even need to have happened. It's like, okay,
Oh,
we can
okay.
talk about her character and her development, but, the whole show and the books, too, up to a certain extent, had been whether or not she was going to end up with Bill or Eric, which are the two vampires.
All right.
And I don't know if you heard all the chaos that went down around Charlene Harris's finale of the
Oh, she
book
did. She did
series.
end the books. Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
she
Okay.
ended the books, and apparently the poor woman got like death threats
Wow.
from fans who were totally like, you got to be bonkers if you're writing an author and saying, I'm going to kill you because you didn't end the series,
I've got to
in a
stop
way
doing
I
that
wanted
with
it.
authors. Yeah.
Okay. But in the books, Sookie doesn't end up with either Bill or Eric either. And she ends up with another character. And the TV
Oh,
series
wow.
goes off on its own tangent. So it's got a different storyline
Well,
than
that
the
sounds
books after.
horrible. I mean, it's like this unwritten rule, and it's probably written somewhere that if it's some sort of romantic story, you almost got to have that, somewhat of a happy ending where they end up.
Well, and see,
Yeah.
that's the thing. There is a happy ending in the sense
Right.
that they have this last scene where they're having Thanksgiving dinner, and it's everybody's going, you see all the different characters, like it's like 5 years later type of thing, and they go through this thing where there's the ending, and then they say a year later, and they show you some things that are happening, and then 2 years later this happens, and 2 more years later they go to this series of scenes where people are getting ready. It's Thanksgiving, and you see her brother Jason and this character who apparently ends up being his wife, and they have kids, and they're getting together and going over to Sookie's house. And it's all these people you've met through the show who are still alive, because a lot of people die, going over to Sookie's for Thanksgiving. And the whole time it's this build-up. It's like, what's happened to Sookie? Where she ended up? What has she ended up doing? And you finally get a glimpse of her, and she's pregnant. And you're like, okay, who did she marry, or who's she with, and all this and that. And they never show. It's just some sleepless human. They show her giving this guy a hug, and you just see him from the back, And in my mind, I was like, what a freaking cheat.
Yeah. Oh, that sucks.
It was like, it's some character you never met, somebody you'll never know. And it's like, I get it on one hand. All she ever really wanted was a normal life, which is kind of, I don't know. So everything that happened between her and, Bill and Eric and all of that might as well have never happened, because if they had never come in her life, nothing different would have happened.
Wow, that sounds very disappointing.
Annoyed the crap out of me is all I have to say. I can't
It sounds
get this piece
like
of hair out of my face.
It looks hot. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
This is from Xavier, and he says, "Do the final episodes of a season of Doctor Who count? Those regeneration episodes are technically final episodes." That's true. That show pretty much starts over,
Yeah.
almost from, well, not from scratch, but it starts over because you're getting basically a whole new character.
Yeah,
and,
they can be a little emotionally wrenching.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have here from the comments? Boy, there are a lot here. Also, Darren said another great ending was The Prestige. I'm not familiar
with that.
Oh, just looking at Xavier, it says, "Buddy, better not forget to read the rest of Patrick's comment after his MASH rant. I got your back, Stemper." And I did take care of that, guys. I guess we're talking movies here, too. David Anson says, "Worst endings, Matrix Revolutions. Really good ending, Farscape." I never saw the last Matrix movie.
You didn't?
I never got around to it. I didn't. I don't know. I just heard. Of course, like everyone, I loved the first one. I thought the second one was better than a lot of people gave it credit for. But I heard so many people say the last one sucked that I never really gave it a chance. I even own it. I got it downstairs.
They went into the real world at that point, and the people who had survived and lived, way underground, away from the machines. And I'm trying to remember exactly how it ended.
Did Keanu Reeves wake up and the whole thing was a dream of his character from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? That would have been fantastic.
That would have been funny. No, and I'm actually racking my brain now. So for those of you who do remember, enlighten me, because it's totally escaping me how the last one ended.
Yeah. Another one here from the comments. This is again from our pal Michelle Reed. And I agree. I was going to mention this one. Cheers. Cheers had a great ending.
Oh, yeah.
As a matter of fact, before the show for research, I went and I looked at a list online. It was an article, I guess, from a little while ago, Entertainment Weekly had done on what they consider to be like the top 20 best endings for shows, and that was, I think, in their top 5. They really liked that a lot. That was great. I mean, you had Diane Chambers come back, the character Diane, played by Shelley Long, and it looked like Sam was going to move off to California with her because he wasn't happy with a lot of things in his life, and they both realized they even got on the plane, and they both realized they were making a horrible mistake.
Right.
And you remember it pretty well, right? There was the great last scene in the bar with Sam and Norm. And Norm's just like, I knew you weren't going to leave. You always come back to, your one true love. And he was, referring to Cheers as being, Sam's true love, and said you had to have one thing in life that always makes you. If you have one thing that makes you happy, you grab a hold of that thing, and you never let it go. Like Norm said that, like that bar stool was his one thing. He knew that no matter what, he could be in that bar stool and he'd be fine. And Sam didn't quite get it at first. He's like, I don't know what my one true thing is. He's like, think about it, Sammy. And then Sam looks around at the bar, and that Cheers is the one true thing that he loves. And then someone comes to the door, knocks on it, and he's like, sorry, we're closed. and that was the end of the show. It was great. I loved Cheers.
Hadn't he sold the bar?
At one
And the
point, he
X-Men
sold the
came back?
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when Diane's character left.
Right.
Yeah, Sam had sold the bar, and then he came back, and a big corporation owned it, and he had to go back to work there as a bartender.
Right.
And that's when they brought in Kirstie Alley, and it was great all throughout. That's one of the few shows where you can lose like some major characters, and it still kept going strong because the writing was so great on that show, and the rest of the cast was fantastic. I mean, Kirstie Alley came in, and it was so great. It was a whole different dynamic. And Woody came in for the coach right around the same time, and it was great.
Well, and Kirstie Alley did really become a part of the show. I mean, she wasn't just a replacement. She came in as her own, I guess the management for the corporation. She was their manager.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, you had the romantic stuff between her and Sammy some too.
Yes.
And I just love it. And then that leads to another one that's on my list, and that was Frasier. Frasier had a fantastic series finale too. Did you follow Frasier?
I did. I followed him. Remind me of the finale.
Well, that one, he had in that last season. I think he was under. Of course, they were self-contained episodes, but there was like underlying stuff. Like in that last season. For example, Niles and Daphne were expecting their first child, and that happened in the final episode. Also, Martin, the father, had his girlfriend, and they got married in the final episode. And also, I believe, let me see if I can remember this correctly, Frasier's radio station had been sold. And so they were changing things there, and he decided, I think with everything else that was going on, all the changes around, he wanted a fresh start. He was going to go off to some city and be, I guess, another radio show host there in another city. But he also fell for a woman. I forget the name of the actress now. But she got a job at another city, and you think Frasier's going to fly off and be with this woman. Fly off to the other job and not be with the woman. But in the final scene, it turns out that he gave up the dream job that he was offered, and he flew off, I think, to Chicago to be with her. So it was nice. It was a whole another fresh start for Frasier. That was a great show, and I think it lasted, 11 seasons, 10 or 11 seasons.
Yeah, it lasted a long time.
Yeah,
it's one of those I love watching in syndication because they'll have like 3 or 4 episodes in a row. Yeah. And the dog. Yeah. Oh, he was my favorite.
Oh, Eddie. Yeah.
Eddie. He was awesome.
Yeah. And all the actors and actresses on there were just fantastic. Fantastic. I love the dad. John Mahoney played the father, and he was great. Fantastic.
We got to bring up Patrick Stemp made a comment. He said, Roseanne, the entire final season was shite. Learning that everything that happened after Dan's heart attack was a lie. Shite. Wow, I had to put that up there. Right. Did you watch this?
No, I wanted you to clarify for me because I've heard bits and pieces. I heard something about they became rich in the last season. Was that the deal?
Yeah, and it turns out, and just what Patrick Stemp said, it turns out to all be a lie. It's a book Roseanne is writing. And there's a point where Dan has a heart attack. And
he dies, right?
Well, what you find out in the end is he actually did die, but they don't have him die. They play out that whole final season with all these different things happening. The daughters getting married and having a baby and all this kind of stuff. And it turns out that, well, in the end, this is the thing that killed me, is like when she wrote the story, she changed things the way she thought they should be. And then winning the lottery, and there was a lot of silly episodes where, now that they have all this money, they're interacting with, celebrities, and it was the, do you ever see the show Absolutely Fabulous?
Yeah.
Yeah, those 2 women show up in one of the episodes.
Oh, okay.
It's funny stuff, don't get me wrong. But to come to the end and to find out, like, she changed who Becky's boyfriend, like, she swapped the boyfriends between the 2 sisters, Becky and, what was the curly-haired girl's name?
I really didn't watch the show. I didn't like it.
Anyways, that annoyed the hell out of me. And it's like, okay, if she was writing a book, that's one thing. But it also reflected, when you go back and you think about the whole series from the beginning, now you're like, well, what was real and what wasn't?
Right.
And none of it is. I mean, in the end, you're like, okay, none of it is, I guess.
Now, something,
all a book.
Oh wow, interesting. Something you said in there reminded me of another show I didn't even have on my list, but they had a great series finale, and that was The Wonder Years. Were you a fan of The Wonder Years?
I was a fan of the Wonder Years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I remember that. I remember in particular. I guess it was. What was the character's name? Fred Savage played him. The main character. I forget.
Oh
But
God. See now you're. I remember
yeah,
Winnie.
yeah. I remember Winnie. Winnie turned out pretty hot too, by the way. Um, but there was. I think what happened was they ended up separating, and you hear the narrator say that the next time they saw each other, I think that he was introducing Winnie to his wife and child, so many years later, and then he also says what happened to his family members, like his father died like a year or so, after the events of that final episode. His brother took over the father's business, that sort of thing. It was
Right.
pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
they gave you like a wrap up there, and I remember it was good. It was good.
Well, I do like when they give you like, here's, what happened in their life a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
For a show like that, because that was very much like a heartwarming family
Hmm.
type of thing. It was a comedy, but it was a good way to bring that ending in.
Yeah, another great show, and I've mentioned this show several times on this series of ours, was Happy Days. Now, Happy Days is one of
Yes.
my favorite shows ever, and they're good. Their last episode was really good too. Joni married Chachi in that,
Right.
and for me, I thought it was one of the best series finales ever because Howard Cunningham, the father of Joni and Richie, and the long lost Chuck, he did like a little toast for the wedding, but he wasn't just doing it to the people there at the wedding. He like looked at the camera, and he was thanking everyone for sharing their
Right.
lives and that sort
Yep.
of thing. And he said to Happy Days, and it was really great. Love that.
I liked how they dived into oh my God, the main. I'm having one of
Richie
those. Yes,
Fonzie.
thank you, Richie. Where
Uh-huh.
he goes off. I mean, didn't he go off to war?
He didn't go off to war. Him and Ralph Malph went and joined the army together, but they never
Right.
said that they were in the war.
Okay.
But yeah, and then after like 3 or 4 seasons, he came back for 2 episodes,
Mhm.
and they kind of dealt with him being back and how he didn't quite want to lead the life that like everyone had envisioned for him with being a writer for
Right.
like the Milwaukee Journal. He wanted to become a screenwriter, and he wanted to move off to California. And his parents and everyone's like, no, you can't do that. You got to be responsible. You got to be here. And that was great. That could have been a great finale there too, because he ended up doing that, and it was really great goodbye scenes between him and like all the other characters, especially
Right.
him and Fonzie.
Right.
That's one honest to God, that makes me cry every time I watch it, even though it's like
Aw.
30 years ago. I love that. It was good stuff.
Okay, I have to bring up this comment. It just struck me, and
Okay.
it's Xavier Granville. Did Frasier ever find out what to do with those tossed salad and scrambled eggs?
That's great.
So if
That's
you
great.
didn't watch Frasier, you don't know what he's talking about, viewers. It's the theme song.
Hey, baby, I lose a comment.
Go ahead, sing it, buddy. Come on.
I'm singing everything else tonight. Last show, I'm trying for a recording contract or something. From Patrick, Firefly. When the crew is
Oh.
carrying a casket off the ship onto a snowy planet for a funeral, and knowing that as they filmed it, they just learned the show was canceled.
I know.
Cries.
I know.
Yeah, not a like final episode per se, because it wasn't written that way, which is cool because we got the awesome Serenity movie later on.
Yes.
And I still hope something can happen with Firefly later on. I know everyone involved with it wants to do something. That was a great show.
It was.
Should have lasted more than one season.
Very
Uh,
true. And did you
yes.
know, I read somewhere that Josh Whedon had said, like, he totally didn't expect that.
Mhm.
And, he had a lot more to do with that show and, thought out and planned out. And apparently it changed the way he wrote other shows after that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, I can't remember all the details, but the fact that he, decided to write things differently because of that unexpected cancellation.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, I've heard that with other shows too now, where they kind of like like say it's the end of a season, and they don't know if the show's struggling. They'll do that. Matter of fact, I'm not saying it was inspired by Firefly, but one of the things. Were you a Scrubs fan?
I've
Also.
watched it in syndication.
Oh,
I've
okay.
watched a ton of them, but I don't
Yeah.
know that I've seen the finale.
Okay. Well, I wasn't going to talk about the finale, but like one of the things that they had planned that, although that was well, all right. I was going to say that was a great finale, but there were sort of like two separate finales for that because the show was brought back after they thought it was going to be canceled. But what I was going to say was towards the beginning of the show,
Hmm.
the producers of that, the creators of it, they knew the show was quirky and offbeat, and they didn't
Hmm.
know if it would last more than one season. So one of the things that they had planned in there, do you remember the janitor character? He was
Yes.
he was always like, doing all these things to like sort of terrorize JD, the main
Hmm.
character.
Hmm.
Um, they had it so that like throughout the first season, he never really interacted with any other characters except for JD. And they were going to say that if the series did suddenly end, that character was actually just in JD's mind the whole time.
Ah, I like that.
So I think
That's
stuff like
cool.
that's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, I got a cool comment from Darren here I want to bring up. It's not talking about a TV show, but it's talking about a movie, and it's a series that that I love,
Hmm.
and it regards the Rocky series.
Oh,
He
cool.
says, I love the ending to Rocky 4. It's probably more of an age thing. I was a young teenager in Halifax Picture House, and everyone chanted, Rocky, 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 while he fought Ivan Drago in
Hmm.
Russia. At the end of his winning speech, everyone burst into applause, and I felt like I was a part of something special. And
Cool.
yeah, that was a fantastic ending to that movie. And I remember seeing the Rocky movies. I think like all of them in the theaters, and I remember
Hmm.
like seeing even. I mean, yeah, I'm older. I've seen them all in the theaters. Yeah, but I remember seeing Rocky 2 is specifically in the theater, and it was like something special because that's when he wins the championship. He beats Apollo Creed, and people were cheering like they were watching a
Yeah.
real fight, and I was
Yep.
one of them too. I'm just like,
Yep.
hit him, and it was great. And speaking of finales, now for years it seemed like Rocky 5 was going to be the last movie in that series. And Rocky 5 was good, but most people say that they thought it was a bummer way to end the whole series of films. And even Stallone has said that. That's why he made Rocky Balboa.
Hmm.
I believe it was 2005, which was like 15 years after Rocky 5. And to me, that was a great, great, great way to end that series. It was just a perfect ending to the Rocky movies. I love Rocky Balboa. That's probably my third favorite of the series.
I
After
still have to see Rocky Balboa.
Oh, you do, you
I
do.
know.
Yeah.
I do.
I'll
You know
lend you my
what? I
DVD.
got my new TV set up. I got a smart TV.
Hmm.
So I don't have to worry about, getting things from my computer to my TV anymore to watch it. It's like all on there. It's like I don't know why I'm so excited about it, but I can get Rocky Balboa and watch it.
Oh, awesome,
No
awesome.
excuses.
Let's see here, Xavier. We got so many great comments. Thanks, everybody. We really appreciate
Hmm.
this. You're making the last show extra special. Xavier says, on rewatching the show Friends, I wonder how and why it went on for 10 seasons. Now, I disagree. Xavier, I love you, but I'm disagreeing with you left and right here. Just got worse and worse. If it were just the Joey and Chandler show, hey, then I'd understand why it went for 10 years. I still
disagree.
liked it. I
I
thought it
liked
was
it.
good. The finale I thought was good. I thought the show kept getting stronger. And one thing that bothered me a little bit was when they spun off into the Joey show. Did you watch Joey at all?
No, I didn't watch the
Oh.
Joey show.
Well, towards the end of Friends, they had given, now Joey was obviously supposed to be like the dumb guy on that show, but
Hmm.
they had given him a little bit more depth.
Right.
Like when he fell for Rachel, he was he was maturing some then.
Yes.
You saw, but when they spun him off to Joey, they just totally went for dumb Joey.
Right.
And to me, that was a mistake because the character had grown, and then they just sucked that away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that's
I
why
love
it
Friends.
didn't work. Because it wasn't the Joey we had grown up with, It's like
Yeah.
I loved Friends. I've watched them all. I remember I really got into it when I was living in DC right out of college, and I was just watching the heck out of that show and absolutely loved it, and so stuck with it. And the ending was right for that series. I really thought they nailed it. It's like the people ending up together who needed to be together, and they're
Yeah.
leaving this 20-something life they had been living in New York City, which
Right.
I don't know how they live in these wonderful apartments.
Well,
But still.
I know the answer to that one, but
Well, wasn't it a rent-controlled apartment?
that's what it was. It was actually Monica and Ross's grandmother had the
Yes.
apartment.
And I
years
did
ago.
know that, but still.
Yeah, but still, yeah, I know. And you hear that. You even hear the actors and actresses joke about that. I saw they were all recently on something. Who's the guy who does the late night show? Jimmy something, not Jimmy
Jimmy
Fallon.
Fallon.
Not Jimmy Fallon, the other Jimmy.
Oh
Yeah.
God, don't put me on the
Okay,
spot.
but
I'm terrible with names.
the actresses were all on there.
Oh,
They
cool.
did like a little spoof where he wrote himself into an episode of Friends where he was supposed to be making out with all of them and stuff like that. And but they made jokes about that. Well, we got so many comments here. I don't want to miss anything. Patrick says a little behind on the feed, but I think Buddy just hinted at the ending of Newhart. Oh, let me just bring this up, okay? Because I do want to talk about this, because this is probably the greatest series finale ever. And a little behind on the feed, but I think Buddy just hinted at the ending of Newhart when Bob wakes up and realizes that everything that happened was a dream of his character in his other show. Awesome. And the quote is, "You should wear more sweaters." You've seen it, right?
I have not seen that ending.
Okay.
I have not.
Have you heard of it though? I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great. And for those who aren't, because it's gone back almost 20 years now. Some of the younger viewers might not know it, but in the show Newhart, Bob Newhart played Dick Loudon, who owned an inn in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
And it ran for many years. I think it was on for 7 or 8 years, and it was great. His wife was played by an actress named Mary Fran. Her name was Joanna, and she wore a lot of sweaters on there. She was a very attractive woman, and the last episode was just bizarre. This group of Asians had bought pretty much the whole small town where the show took place. And this town was just inhabited by all these weird, wacky characters. Dick was like the only sane one there, and basically he refuses to sell his inn, so they built this golf course around the inn. It's like they destroyed the town pretty much for this big golf course, and he opens the door and a golf ball hits him in the head, and he passes out, and it looks like he dies. Like a dramatic death here, and then suddenly it goes to black, and then things light up, and you see this setting of a bedroom. And it looks real familiar, and I'm like, I think I know what that is. And it was the set from his original show, the Bob Newhart Show, which had ran years earlier on CBS. And his wife on there was played by Suzanne Pleshette. And anyway, the lights come on, and you see Suzanne Pleshette get out of bed, and that's the whole thing. The whole series of Newhart was a dream by Bob Hartley, the character from the Bob Newhart Show. And that's the thing. And he said to his wife, hey, you ought to wear sweaters like the wife did in the second show. And it was just so clever. I remember watching it, and I think everybody who watched it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe that. It was just, yeah. Whenever you see lists of the best ending, series finales, I always see that as number one. It was just so clever. It was just fantastic. And apparently they were able to keep it a secret from everybody. Only a handful of people on the set knew and everything. And they sucked. They snuck in Suzanne Pleshette to do that little cameo, and it was nice. It was just great. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay, I go. This just popped into my head, and I don't know why. But the ending, they did the Star Wars trilogy, and they went back and did, the prequels 1 through 3.
Right.
You know how they redid the original movies afterwards, and they added different scenes, and they were using the CGI. Do you remember the scene? The very last, the Return of the Jedi, and you get to the bridge scene where they're all standing there and they're celebrating, and the kind of ghostly images of the Jedi who have died. You've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you had Anakin Skywalker and all that. Well, what always bugged me? You know how they ended up changing Anakin Skywalker from the old man that he was when they took the helmet off to the young Anakin Skywalker?
Yes.
Why didn't they change the rest of them to the young ones?
Yeah.
Because Obi-Wan Kenobi's still an old man, but they've made Anakin Skywalker, the young guy that he was before he turned bad.
Yeah, and I don't.
Was it because that was before he turned? I don't know. It didn't make sense.
That annoyed a lot of people. The whole ending. Well, first of all, they never should have thrown in Hayden Christensen. And never should have left it the way it was.
They should have left it alone.
Yeah, I know the actor who played the older version of Anakin was, not like a household name. I don't know the poor man's name, but
it didn't make sense, except to put that actor in there because he was more recognizable.
Right.
If you were going to do that, then you should have made it the young Yoda and the young Obi-Wan Kenobi and the young Anakin. Not that was so.
Right. I'll tell you. I know he created it. I know he's brilliant. I thank you, George Lucas.
Yeah.
Like he's dead. I thank you for giving us these great movies and everything. But I'm also thankful that you're not involved that much with the new movie. I'm glad other people are taking it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Probably enough said on that one.
Yeah.
Here's one I wanted to mention. Were you familiar with Saint Elsewhere? Were you a Saint Elsewhere fan?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you remember how that ended? Because that was a hell of a creative ending.
You know, I'm drawing a blank. I'm drawing a blank. So refresh my memory.
I
Because
wouldn't have
I
thought.
watched St. Elsewhere, and I can't believe I can't remember.
Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar, it was a show that took place. I might have been. I think it was in Chicago. I'm not sure, but it was all about this pretty much rundown hospital. It was the St.
Right.
Eligius, but it was so like in such a bad area they called it St. Elsewhere.
Yes.
And it was like people didn't want to work there.
Mhm.
But one of the main doctor on there throughout most of the run of the series, his character's name was Dr. Westfall, and he was played by Ed Flanders. He had an autistic son throughout the whole series, and you get to the final episode. I'm sorry, the final few minutes of that episode, I can't remember what the plot was for the rest of the episode. It doesn't matter. But you see a scene where, and again, he had been a doctor, a prestigious doctor, but it cuts to a scene where he's not the same character. You see the actor there, and he's coming in, and you can tell he's more of like a blue-collar worker, right? And the same with like an older doctor who was like the mentor figure for him, played by Norman Lloyd, who ran the hospital. He was there as like the grandfather, and then you see the little boy, right, the autistic boy, and you're wondering what's going on. And he's there. He's got a little snow globe in front of him, and he's looking at it, and he's shaking it, and inside is like the hospital. And it says St. Eligius.
Yes.
So basically, the implication was that the entire run of the series was all like the creation of this autistic boy, in his head.
Oh, that's right.
Which was really cool.
Which was just like blew my mind. Like now that you've talked about it, it's like it's in the recesses, buried behind, what to pack for the kids for lunch,
Yeah, and because autism is so misunderstood and not, one of those things where they have a really hard time understanding, the dynamics of it. And you see like these incredible things out of people with autism, and that just blew the mind. That one there, that was great. That was great. Another one I wanted to mention. I know we're running low on time. If we go a little over, I think we can. Mary Tyler Moore Show. They had a great series finale too. Were you a fan of Mary Tyler Moore?
I didn't really watch that much of it. I watched some of it in syndication, but I did not see the finale.
That was a good one because they all worked at this TV station in Minneapolis, and a new owner came in and bought the station, and they fired everyone who worked there except for Ted Baxter. And he was like the bumbling anchor man played by the late great Ted Knight. And it first of all, it was funny, but then it was also very touching because you had the characters all say goodbye to each other in the newsroom, and they sang a song together. It was I'm going to mistitle, but it was like A Long, Long Way to Tipperary. It was some like old song, some old 30s and 40s song, but they're all singing this as they walk out of the newsroom, and Mary turns off the lights and it just goes black. And that was a great final episode. If you were a fan of the show, it was definitely, both moving and funny. It was great.
Okay, we got some comments we need to catch up on here.
Okay.
Let's see, where did we leave off? I saw after Friends, Patrick Stemp said, Arrested Development, original series. No show was better at playing out a joke over seasons and bringing the entire series back to the start at the end. Did you watch that one?
Arrested Development? Yeah. And, I haven't seen, I know they did a season 4, like I guess last year, that they did for Netflix. I'm like halfway through that, and from what I understand, they're hoping to do a season 5 too. But I agree with them. Yeah, their season finales were very, very good. And I don't remember. I'm sorry. Did you say you watched that, Melissa, or no?
No, I didn't watch Arrested Development. I
think there might have been. I might be wrong, and he can correct me later if he wants to. But I think there was like references in there they didn't know it was going to be the last episode, but if it was, just like we were talking about earlier, there was stuff in there.
Right.
But yeah, very clever show. When I caught up on it on Netflix last year, because I watched it, I had never seen it during the original airing. I was hooked. I was watching it, like 4 or 5 episodes a night. Very funny show. My God, we do have a lot of comments here.
Yes, that's why I was trying to get them in. Will you read a couple more?
Sure. Patrick says one for Darren Wearmouth, Faulty Towers, Basil the Rat.
Oh, yeah.
Love the show. Adore that episode. Yeah, Faulty Towers was great. Darren, why we're not best friends is beyond me. Great ending. Twin Peaks. Bob smashing
Oh,
his head against the mirror.
yep,
Yeah, that was
yeah.
great. That was great. Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan's character, Dale Cooper, had apparently been taken over by the evil Bob, and he's just
Mhm.
smashing it. And if you've seen it, he's like,
Yeah.
"Where's Annie? Where's Annie? Where's Annie?" He's like so twisted and demented, and it was great. And I wish there had been a third season. My God, that was a good show.
Yeah. It was such a shame that it was so short. But I mean, did they intend it to be that short? Was that?
No, it's just the network screwed around with that because they put it on different nights and they were losing viewership on it,
Yeah.
and really the producers kind of strayed a little, and they say it now too that they think that maybe they should have solved like the Laura Palmer thing earlier than they did, and like
Mhm.
kind of gotten a stronger storyline for the second season. It was still great, I thought, the second season,
Right.
but some things should have been done differently there. Actually, there's talk of that show being revived.
Really?
Yeah, there's talk of
Where are
it.
you hearing this talk?
David Lynch, actually, I saw a quote from him about it where he was talking about
Really?
maybe bringing it back in some form, maybe even on Netflix. So that
That
would
would
be
be
cool.
awesome.
Yeah. Xavier says Usual Suspects, one of the best finales in film, in my opinion. I agree with you there. I don't think a lot of people saw that ending coming. Let's see here. We already talked about Roseanne. Darren says, and I want to bring this up, because I haven't started watching this series yet, but I want to. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. Okay, Patrick Stemp recommended The Blacklist to me. Terrific show, and I totally love it. But the issue of Red being Elizabeth's father is obvious and painfully held back. Okay, I don't know what that is, and I don't want to know too much more because it just became available on Netflix, and I haven't started watching it yet. But I hear that show is awesome. Do you watch that, Melissa?
I do not.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's
I
all
do
right.
not. I'm feeling bad. It's like there's all these great shows, but it's like we always say, there are so many shows to watch and there's so many books to read and so many movies. I can't possibly do it all in one life. I need to be reincarnated.
Okay, Michelle talks about the movie Serenity, saying that it was pretty good, and then she's kind of gives away a character's death. So I'm not going to read it, but if you want to see that, you can look at that in the comments. Also, Michelle brings up House. Now, I didn't think about it. House had a good ending. Were you a House fan?
I was not. I'm sorry, I was reading Michelle's comment.
Yeah, I did enjoy that. I kind of got away from House towards the end. I don't know. It lost something for me the last couple seasons, but I did go out of my way to watch the final episode, and I enjoyed it.
Cool.
Xavier said he brings up one here I have not seen. He says the finale of Band of Brothers. Oh man, that was super emotional. Loved how they had the real life veterans during the interview segments. I've heard that was an amazing series.
I did. I like that they were, having the commentary, the real people that the stories were based on. It was really intense.
Awesome. Any other ones you want to talk about, Melissa?
I had a couple of them, but they're probably shows that you didn't see, like Ally McBeal.
Oh, no. I loved Ally McBeal.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yay!
Yay.
Okay, so Ally McBeal, I loved that series. It was just, and my husband always joked, he always called it Ally McSqueal. I don't know why. But I adored that show, that they played with her, taking her mental state and bringing it, out into the real world, the dancing baby and, those different things. The ending was kind of weird to me. That whole thing where she has this daughter she didn't know she had.
Yeah, they brought her in, I guess. Well, yeah, because when she was in college, she made like a donation, like an egg donation somewhere. It was something weird like that. Then she found out.
Or she had some eggs frozen because she didn't know she was ever going to get married, and she just wanted it in the bank to make sure.
Right, and then they were used, and then I guess the adoptive mother of that little girl died, so the girl tracked down Allie, and that actress has gone on to have quite a. I always mispronounce her name, but it was Hayden Panettiere. She's went on to be on Heroes, and now she's on that Nashville show. Lovely young actress, but she played the daughter on there, and yeah, I remember it ended. I remember too, because Allie, I guess the little girl was missing like her grandparents, her adoptive grandparents, and I guess her aunt in New York. So Allie, quit her job in Boston and was moving to New York for her daughter's sake. Yeah.
And And the last scene is like her walking down the street, leaving, and that's like the end.
Yeah.
And it's, I so enjoyed the show, and I won't say it was a bad finale, but at the same time, it was kind of like, okay. But yeah, that part of her life was over. She was moving on, and she was doing this for her daughter. And it was the first time in her life that she felt like she was making the right decision. Because she always questioned herself inside and out.
Oh yeah, she did. She did. It was a great series.
It was. And that whole last season was funny. There were so many funny things going on and interesting things with the characters.
Yeah, and the series, I think, for a while had lost its way. They were bringing in like all these other extra characters, and I think it kind of found itself again when Robert Downey Jr. was on there, but then that didn't work out because that's when he was having more drug problems.
Oh, that bummed me out so
He was fantastic
bad.
on there, and it sort of was like reviving his career because people were saying how fantastic he was. But
he did such a great job in that role.
He was great.
Why do people do that to themselves when they're like doing so well and they just drag themselves down?
Yeah, well, thank goodness he got himself together and his career is stronger than ever, and he seems very happy. So that's
I really enjoy him in the Sherlock movies. It's been good.
Yeah, yeah. One other you mentioned how you're kind of disappointed in that. One of the ones that I was most disappointed in for a series finale was Will and Grace.
Yes, I was a Will and Grace watcher. Yep.
Yeah. Do you remember how that ended?
I don't remember all the details. What disappointed you about it?
Well, I remember that. Boy, I was talking to Lisa about this, and the last season, I believe that like Grace's character and her husband had broken up, but and then Will had a relationship with a guy that he was really. I don't think they got married on there because back at that time you still didn't allow that, but they were definitely true partners and they loved each other. But Will and Grace had some sort of falling out. I believe that Grace was pregnant. I don't know who it was by. I don't know who she had a baby by. But it cuts ahead like 18 years. They have a falling out, and they decide not to be friends anymore. And I might be getting some of this wrong, but they actually reunite like 18 years later by mistake because it turns out that Will and his partner had adopted a boy.
Right. Okay.
And I guess it turns out that the boy was going to the same college as Grace's daughter. And it was just weird. It could have been better. I remember like there was some good Jack and Karen stuff in there. I remember that. I liked them a lot.
Karen is always one of my favorites.
Yeah, I remember some scene. I wish I had watched it before this, but there was some scene with them at a piano. I think they were singing together or something like that. But that was a good part of it. But the whole thing with like these two people that were like the best friends, the way they were and the way they fell apart. That show lost it for me the last couple seasons because they turned it. We were talking about Seinfeld, how the characters were such nasty people. The characters of Will and Grace became nastier as it went on. They became not so nice people, especially Will, because at the beginning Will was like the nicest guy in the world, and then he became more bitter, and Jack and Karen almost became cartoonesque.
Yes.
I thought to a degree.
Well, look how they ended it with didn't Grace have some sort of dream that her and that whole episode starts with her having a dream that her and Jack are raising her baby together.
Something like that, yeah.
But remember, in her dream, Karen hasn't aged, and when they go all the way to the end, just like in her dream, Karen's had so much plastic surgery that she looks the same.
Yeah, I was disappointed in that one. It was a good series for the most part. I really loved it towards the beginning, but that's one I thought lost its way. I'm looking to see if I missed any comments here. There's just been so many, and unfortunately, as we've said every show, the comments kind of lag a little bit here. So I want to go to the YouTube page and just see that.
Xavier says, "Ooh, I really dug The Office for its finale. Though the show had some hit-or-miss moments over the years, I had tears in my eyes when Michael Scott returned for Dwight's wedding."
I haven't seen that yet. I loved The Office. I didn't really watch the last season. I keep meaning to.
Yeah, I didn't see the last season either. I watched it a lot.
Yeah.
I fall off of shows like that sometimes.
Yeah, I'll tell you though, for that show though, like the last season with Michael on there, that was some heavy duty stuff. I mean, that show, the show could be totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, totally ridiculous. But it could also really move you, especially when you got into the stuff with like Jim and Pam, and but like when Michael, it was, it could have been a good series finale there if they had ended the series when Michael, Michael Scott's character left. But he fell in love and he proposed, and then the final episode with him where he was leaving, that was a great, fantastic season finale.
Mm-hmm.
The last one was Steve Carell as Michael. Loved that.
Cool.
Michelle says, I'm going to say one for myself and Liam Kingman and John Reed, the ending of Fight Club. Now, I have not seen Fight Club.
Oh, you haven't? Oh,
I
that's
know
a
everyone tells
twisted.
me I should read the book.
Yeah.
Everyone tells me I should watch the movie. I actually own 2 copies of that movie, and I've never seen it.
Yeah, that's a real spoiler if I tell you how it ends.
I imagine it
It's a
involves some
great
sort of
movie.
fighting. Yeah. Looking here, I think we got most of the. Oh, Darren's the end of Blackadder was very poignant and went against the theme of the show, but it fitted very well. Summed up the futility of World War I. All right. Oh, David Anson. More good endings: Magnum PI and The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Oh, when Johnny Carson left.
Yes.
Because he was the Tonight Show as far as I was concerned.
Johnny
But that's
Carson
when I grew up.
will always be The Tonight Show. He was
Yeah.
he was the king of late night. That was great. I remember that. I remember they had sort of like 2 last episodes. They did an episode where it was his last show with guests, and like Bette Midler sang to him, and it was just very, very touching, and Johnny was crying. And then the next episode was pretty much Johnny and Ed just talking. And and Johnny choked up at the end. He said, I bid you all a very fond adieu.
Yes.
And it was great. And what was the other one that he mentioned there? Magnum PI.
Okay.
Magnum PI was fantastic. I loved Magnum PI, and that was a good episode too. They wrapped up everything great on Magnum. And what's interesting I remember about that is they thought that Magnum PI might end the season before that, and they actually made it look like Magnum's character died at the end of season 7, where he had been shot, and the whole thing was like him, it turned out he was in a coma, but it was like him in heaven dealing with even some characters who have been on the show who had died, and trying to still solve the murder case that he had been working on. But the way they did actually they decided to do another season, and I'm glad they did because it was awesome. And the final one was really good because it ended up with Magnum deciding his daughter came back into his life, his sort of a estranged daughter, and he decided to become he rejoined the Navy. That was something they always referred to, the fact that he had been in the Navy, and it was really a great thing. They keep talking about making a Magnum PI movie now with various actors, like Matthew McConaughey was supposed to be him at one point, and if they ever do it, bring back Tom Selleck, bring back the original cast.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, and Selleck said that too. He said he doesn't want anyone else to play Magnum.
Yeah. How could they?
Yeah, exactly.
It just wouldn't be right.
It just wouldn't be right. It just wouldn't be right. So we are a little bit over the hour mark. So I think, do you have any other ones you want to talk about?
Just one movie I wanted to mention as far as, endings, finales, is The Sixth Sense.
Oh, yeah. One of the best movie endings ever.
It's just one of those movies that I remember watching it because we rented it. We hadn't seen it in theaters, and we watched the movie, and as soon as it ended, Wayne and I turned to each other, and I said to him, "When did you realize?" It's just one of those, and he's like, "I don't know," and he's like, "Because I think right up to the end I didn't realize." And I was like, "I know when I realized what was going on," and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to.
Right.
First of all, I could have been wrong.
Right.
But I didn't want to, mess with my husband's enjoyment of the film. And we watched the whole thing over again right then. We just
did you? Okay.
Beginning and watched it all over, because we had also some commentary on the movie and some cinematography that they did to kind of express what was going on, and trying to give you little clues. And we were like, all right, now we got to see. We're taking notes. Did they stay true to continuity and
right? One of the
it
was amazing. And one thing that was really amazing regarding the whole, of course that was a big blockbuster movie. One of the most amazing things I always thought about all of that was that people who saw the movie did not want to spoil it for other people.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, that was one where people kept their mouths shut because they wanted you to be as surprised as they were.
Yep.
Which is awesome because you don't see that so much now. I mean, like we talked about earlier, things will pop up online like that. Excuse me. And people love the ending to that. That was fantastic. Yeah. That was fantastic.
I think of, there's so many good movies out there, but as far as an ending to a movie that you just went, yeah. That was one. Is great.
Yeah. One movie series that I didn't particularly care for the ending on was the Godfather movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about The Godfather on the show
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
I like The Godfather 3. A lot of people slam it. Matter of fact, Darren was on it. We did a whole show on the
Mhm.
mafia movies. Um, yeah, I just didn't like some things with that. With like his, I don't want to say too much because if you haven't seen the
Yeah,
series,
if you haven't seen the
you should
series.
watch it. But I still loved it. It was a good movie. My
Mhm.
least favorite of the three, but I wish they had done some different things with the
Yeah,
ending on that one.
I understand that.
Yeah,
Without giving anything away.
without giving anything away. So speaking of endings.
Yeah, I didn't want to get to this part. As I've been yapping, just I didn't want to get here.
Yeah. Well, as we've mentioned, folks, this is the last episode of Sunday Night Fiction Club, and we've had a lot of our regular viewers here tonight watching the show live, and we appreciate that.
Yes, thank you so much.
We started the show back in January. We've had a blast doing it.
Yeah.
And some people have asked, even tonight on Facebook, why are you guys ending the show? And this is I initiated this. I'll take
Yeah,
fault
but
for like
I feel
ending.
like it's my fault, but at the same time.
How is it your fault? You're awesome.
Oh.
Honest to God, could not have asked for a better co-host for this show.
This has
I
been.
wanted to do a show with somebody, and it's been
Mhm.
fun. But the reason that I can't do the show anymore is because I'm moving off to Alaska. I found a nice young Alaskan Eskimo girl. Lisa doesn't know about the show. She's going to see the show tomorrow as I'm on the plane to Alaska. And no, of course that's not it. I love you, Lisa. I am just
I
like.
was like, we're starting a whole episode of Buddy's Northern Exposure.
Oh, that would be so much fun. I would do that. No, seriously. Most of you know I have another show called Buddy's Writing Show that I've been doing for a while. I started that almost a year ago. And some of you may know, too, that that's not ever on at a set time. Because I work in retail. I have a very unusual work schedule. My schedule changes every week. And the reason Sunday Night Fiction Club has always been on at 10 o'clock on Sunday nights is because I know that's the only time I'm really not going to be working. Because I work in a store and they close early on Sundays, so that's why we did this. But the thing is that I kind of need to have a regular time for Buddy's Writing Show because I've been having with scheduling guests and that sort of thing, and a lot of people have been asking me about having a regular time for it, and so I decided to go with. I'm starting next week. Buddy's Writing Show is going to be live every Sunday at 10. So I wish we could keep doing this show, but I can't do both. Except it might not be the end. We're going to hopefully do like some specials because it's not like Melissa and I are going to stop talking. She's one of my best friends in the whole world. So yeah,
and we had talked about possibly doing it at 11, but if your writing show went over, and also I'll be honest, I'm an old lady.
Tired of me. That's it. She was just like, "I'm honest, I'm tired of you."
Never tired of you.
And you are not old, please. Okay.
But I have, being up to do the show at 10 is enough of a challenge for me to try to be up at 11 or even as late as 11:30.
Right.
I'm just like, that's not going to happen. Because frankly, I'm in my, lazy pants at 9 in bed reading a book.
Yeah, we talked about ways to keep it going, but it's just kind of hard to do at this point. But maybe later on we will do some occasional specials.
Yeah, absolutely. And your writing show is doing so well, and you really need to give the people that you're interviewing, you need to have that regular time slot so you can really make it work.
Yeah. Thankfully, that show, and everyone who watches watches this show, I really appreciate you watching that because that show's actually grown a lot for me lately. I've had people contacting me about appearing on the show and everything. Mm-hmm. It's just been going really well, so I just need to have a set time for it. And I'm going to be adding some stuff to that, too. I'm going to be playing with the format of that one a little bit. So
and it's a great concept, and it's a great way for people to meet, new authors that they hadn't heard of before. And
thank you. I appreciate that. I was just included on a website about like the top 5 writing podcasts, and it was included on that. So that was pretty cool. But enough about that. But everyone who's watched the show, thank you so much. We've had so much fun.
We have. This has been a lot. This is like just us hanging out and talking about what we love, which are movies and music and books, and it's been a good time.
And the folks we've had co-host the show, guest co-host before, that's been a lot of fun. Darren's been on the show a couple times. Michelle Reed, of course, Xavier Granville I mentioned. He's been on the show more than anybody else. And everyone who's been on and everyone who's watched every week, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
Yeah, we're going to keep this.
And this isn't goodbye. This isn't farewell. This is until we meet again.
Yeah, we're going to keep the YouTube channel open. We keep our Google Plus page open because we're hoping to come back and do some stuff once in a while. So, having said that, thank you all again so much, Melissa. Thank you. I love you.
I love you. Thank you, buddy.
You're
It's
welcome.
been a blast, and I'm
It
sure
has
we'll
been
have
a
more
blast.
fun.
Yes, yes. So I got to get ready for that trip to Alaska now.
All right.
All right.
Say hello
Everybody,
to
thank you
Italy.
so much. Tune in for my show next Sunday, 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, or
All right.
standard, whatever the
Good night,
hell it is.
all. And we're going to miss
Yes.
you too, David.
You're going to miss you all. Thank you all so much. Melissa, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Good night.
Bye.